Hi everyone, this is Dan. Today we're going to be talking about Pinterest, the newest and I think most interesting of the social networks discussed in this class. First, Pinterest is different. It's important, especially when you log on, to recognize that the collage interface really is different than the stream interface that you see on Twitter or Facebook. The collage does a couple of things. First, it really does open up the possibility for your eye to be drawn toward different kinds of images. So when you're looking at those and when you're looking at that array of images, you really process them differently than you do individual large images. Recent earnings reports for Facebook in particular have emphasized their increased presence in mobile, and this increased presence in mobile really does seem to be the result of having very large images in the newsfeed. So that collage really opens up the kind of temporal style you're looking at. So Pinterest reports any number of images, it reports new images, it reports layers of images, and this allows for you to engage in lateral thinking. If you're interested in lateral thinking, there's a great deck of cards created by Brian Eno that are supposed to encourage lateral thinking and alternative problem solving. Lateral thinking supposes that you look at the associations between things and thus can see different tangents that move out in all directions, rather than just a static, linear sort of progression of ideas. This is really interesting in the context of Pinterest because the interface is really designed to get you to think in ways that are very different than you would have thought on Facebook or especially Twitter with the idea of linearity. So I want to start with the beginning by saying the interface is different and the interface matters. And in NMC 260, we talked pretty extensively about interfaces and interface design, and that's something really to keep in mind is how different that interface is. So what do people pin? First, people pin images of things. They pin flower vases. They pin things like houses they want to live in. All kinds of stuff we talked about on the Girard exercise about a month ago. One of the favorite searches I know students do is for crazy house. You'll get incredible images of houses that I think you'll really enjoy. Some people pin inspirational matter, although I'm seeing less of this, like the sort of art you might see at Target telling people to live, laugh, love, or whatever it is. I'm not very good at remembering things that are inspirational or motivational, more in demotivation myself. People pin products they'd like to purchase, so they're thinking about it, they're collecting designs, they're trying to figure out if CB2 or IKEA is really more for them. It's all stylish, right? Some people pin memes, although again I'm seeing less and less of this, although I am seeing fewer memes in general. A lot of the memes I think people underthought, especially some of the reasons why they thought they were funny. A lot of latent assumptions about people and identities that have really gotten deconstructed there. And sometimes you see some other stuff. You occasionally in some particular kinds of pins will see almost arguments happening and comments on them, but that is exceedingly rare. Look for some World War II military antique stuff if you want to find that kind of Pinterest. Who uses Pinterest? Women. The click rates are fantastic. They are stronger than Facebook. What does that mean? In fact, new evidence suggests that Pinterest is the number one referrer of traffic to retail websites. People, when they go onto Pinterest, they click items, and items then can take them to websites where they can make purchases. People tend to have sustained pinning sessions. They're about 22 to 23 minutes long, just like if you were watching a sitcom. People tend to go after higher value items in these sessions. I mean, it's just yummy. Sustained engagement, deliberate clicks, deliberate attention. So this sort of deliberate pinning and deliberate engagement delivers much stronger results than we've been seeing with Facebook. And in fact, I think that Facebook really will start to look more and more like an in-the-moment advertiser as Pinterest really takes over the browse behavior. Another way to think of that, Facebook is the gum and magazines at the checkout stand. Pinterest is deciding which duvet you want to buy, if that makes sense. So that's who uses Pinterest. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is that it's these women, and they click a lot, and they click on high-value things. Now, some people have complained that the number of conversions that happen from Pinterest clicks are a little lower, and that's okay, right? I mean, if we're talking about high-margin clicks, that will win the day. How does Pinterest make money? First, partners. There are companies that are willing to pay to get access to their expertise, to their data, to their brand identity. You read a little bit about this with Nordstrom's, that Nordstrom's wanted to put Pinterest logos in their stores items to let people know this is a favorite, this is tasteful. Referrals. Pinterest can easily take a charge for having each of those outbound links. So put your wedding dress images on Pinterest, although you shouldn't do that because people will rip off your wedding dress. And then you're able to, make money by saying, I referred this person. And again, that's a high dollar value item. So those referrals, when they do convert, can actually be worth a lot of money to you. And there's some other advertising strategies that could be there. This is a recurring theme you're going to hear in this presentation with the kinds of revenue opportunities that are already available and how good a lot of these are looking in terms of conversion. If this was a platform that catered to men, the tech media would be in a frenzy. But it's not, so they aren't. Gender. This is a really big problem set up in the reading. So the big question is there a gender problem? Important things to remember, gender does not equal sex. Gender is an identity you perform. If your memory goes back to June, and I know that is a long time ago, you'll get the argument that I'm going to make about this, which is that micro-targeting is everything. So when I read an article that says that Pinterest needs men to survive, I am very skeptical, because in all of the research I've done, and all of the traditional advertising logic, the assumption is that tightly targeted pure demographics can resonate with particular kinds of ads, and so you can get better conversions for fewer dollars. Tons of case studies on this. But then I read these popular press articles, which then say, well, without a broad audience, a heterogeneous audience, Pinterest can't succeed. To which I say, whoa there, friend. You need to explain to me why Pinterest should actually sully or muddy its demographics when they already have a very tight bandwidth of people who are already making very good purchase decisions using their platform. So, gender. Does Pinterest have a gender problem? I've already tipped my hat to you. I don't think it does. I think, if anything, Pinterest is in a really good position from a marketing standpoint as they have a really tight concept of their audience. So Lang, writing, says that neutrality may be a step forward, but if Pinterest grows dissatisfied with the scrapbookers, I fear the he's might start rearranging the furniture, putting more steel staircases and built-in radio units on the front page, and pushing the flowers off screen. That's what the panicky gendered headlines suggest would be the best, as if women's interests are coming on a little strong for an important social media platform. First of all, I know a lot of women who really like steel staircases, but this really gets it right, which is saying, if that a lot of these panicky headlines are saying that what would matter is if it had sort of a manly kind of imprimatur. So when you read those articles, especially like about gentlemen or whatever, I really start to wonder about the question, what would a manly Pinterest look like? And typically in class, I do a paper Pinterest assignment where people cut up magazines and actually tape things to the walls and the board and whatnot. And there's usually one man Pinterest, and it actually ends up being kind of offensive. And then it's mainly images of women that they find attractive. So we have all these other ones, these complex ideas, and we have these incredibly simplistic, not almost objectifying, really objectifying collages of pictures of women that they find in my big box of magazines. Although my big box of magazines is starting to get a little thin since they've been cut up so much. And so they're saying women's interests, all these different variety of ideas and designs that aren't looking like something else, what a mantrist would look like. But when people actually do try to make those and present them in class, it never goes well. Williams. What Pinterest and gentlemen have in common isn't so much about the gender-specific orientation, but understanding of the future of the web is less about having these mammoth sites that are focused on everything under the sun, and more about niche sites with really supportive and passionate users. And he says, the fact is, it's supposed to be very tongue-in-cheek. That is right, but as a defense of gentlemen, I think it's a little ridiculous that it had to come in someone comparing a man's version of Pinterest to the Pinterest itself, being that Pinterest is one of the most successful social network sites in the shortest period of time we've ever seen. That says something about the debate to you, that to write the article, you have to frame it up about the manly alternative to Pinterest. But this is, I think, on point, which is that very few sites are succeeding right now by claiming to have wide demographics. So what behavior is this? So first and foremost, taste, discuss included, is culturally specific. The just classic example of this, the durian fruit. Most Western folks smell the durian and they think it is awful. They don't want to eat it. There are any number of people in Southeast Asia, though, who think the durian is spectacular. Culturally specific, you have to learn to be disgusted by things. There's some evolutionary biology research that suggests that some people are more easily disgusted than others, and that disgust level is tagged to political affiliation, which is a really interesting idea, although it is unclear to me how Pleistocene evolution is tied to contemporary American political parties. But that's another problem. So you have to ultimately learn what you like and what you don't like. So this is normally the social function you get from having friends, or a taste community, or a debutante ball, or a quinceañera, or any number of other processes, weddings do this too, of learning about style and learning about who you are in style. And you have to learn what is stylish, because if you don't know what's stylish, you can't do it, and you can't do that work of being stylish. So the behavior people are doing on Pinterest is learning about what they want and then repeating and rehearsing those sorts of cultural codes. So I also asked you this week to take a look at a haul video. Haul videos are a really interesting form of cultural education. I really think Blair Fowler's videos are a fantastic example of the genre. And the note here is that absent some kind of pedagogy, there isn't style. And frankly, you don't want to live without style, if that makes sense. People want things to be stylish, they want them to look good, they want them to be tasty, they want them to be interesting. And so haul videos, I think, are really about focusing on a person who has learned the code and then having that code explicated to you. And so this is another gendered experience that happens in in-person classes. And I don't even know if you watched that haul video or have ever watched a haul video. But I'll have a lot of men who will say that they just can't handle the video. They just can't handle listening to a woman speak for 7 minutes. I think that is fascinating in and of itself. But they can't handle the idea of someone talking about products. At the same time, she's very literate about products and is telling you all about products. And so it's an incredible form of cultural education. There then gets to be a question of consumerism in Pinterest. And so an important idea that you want to think about with this social network, and social networks in general, is that consumerism and social networking is about more than purchasing. It's about knowing. It really does take a lot of work to be stylish. So when you read the article on the New Inquiry, they talked a lot about this guy by the name of Jean Baudrillard, who was a French cultural critic in the 20th century. And he argued that consumption and consumerism is not about a passion for a substance, but about a passion for the code. And so when people start thinking about consumerism, he wants to make sure we understand that it's not about object fetishism. It's not that people making household purchasing decisions or buying wedding dresses are really that into the fabric, but they're into doing weddingness, to knowing what the dresses mean, why the open back, what a mermaid actually is. There is nothing more embarrassing for someone than when you watch Say Yes to the Dress and they have no idea what the terminology means. That's not because they love the dress itself, but because they love the code and doing the code work of being a bride and being involved in a wedding and whatever else. So when we start thinking about it in terms of a passion for the code, it starts to make any number of cultural phenomena make more sense. So there are lots of people, say, on Reddit who are engaged in different kinds of political debates, who have developed their entire own vocabulary for what different political positions are. It's interesting. If you're in that community, it's a good shorthand, it makes things go quickly, but at the same time, it's not about the actual political positions, but about the code of saying you are a Reddit person. So when you're talking about consumerism or consumption or the work of being stylish, you're also talking about the work of knowing what a cultural code is. And knowing that code is really valuable for you as a communication professional, because it can tell you about what's going to be stylish, what has been stylish, what isn't stylish, and so forth. So then this can really reframe a lot of the questions about women and objects and whatever else, and starts to say, is this just sexist nonsense? So people are studying these cultural codes about how to do domesticity, but are those necessarily womanly things? Is there something less than about those? Is there some reason why we shouldn't valorize them or consider them important in and of themselves? At the same time, are stereotypically masculine things meaningful or insightful or valuable in and of themselves? I think the answer is no. So we start talking about that sort of, I think, hackneyed line to say that Pinterest is a form of, feminine consumerism. We have to step back both in the sense of asking, what is consumerism? What does it mean? How does it work? What does it do? And we also then have to say, would we have this same critique if this was a website that helped men look at pictures of places where they want to do death sports? And if the answer to that second question is no, we wouldn't say it was a problematic consumerist venture. We have to start thinking about the reaction against reading the code and experiencing a variety of items. So when Baudrillard writes, he says there are 4 kinds of value. There's use value. So when you have that wedding dress, it may keep you warm. Although a lot of designs I saw on the Say Yes to the Dress recently don't seem to do that. There's exchange value. Can you resell it? There's symbolic value. Symbolic exchange, which says if I give you a wedding dress, you'll give me, use a different wedding example, ring for a ring. It's a symbolic exchange. It's not really about the exchange value or the use value. And finally, the sign value, that complicated semiologic process where we build all of this meaning up into the exchange of things and the performance of that day and that ritual. And so those are your orders of value, and they really do very different things. And what Pinterest is doing is it's helping you understand the symbolic and the sign value. It's not about use value or exchange value. That's not why you go to Pinterest. You go to eBay to get that kind of stuff. I mean, you go to YouTube to watch a video about how to use a hammer to get the use value. It's learning about the way you can exchange those symbols and learning about the deep verticals of meaning that are associated with them that helps you understand what those signs mean. So this is not exclusive to Pinterest, but, I read Cosmo and Ad Age and a lot of other magazines. This is a real job for you, is knowing what the codes mean, why they're different, and how you can explicate and expand those codes. And this is really important for your future as a communication and a new media professional, is understanding what is going on more generally and what codes and options and resources are available to you to make an argument, both visually and textually. So summary, Pinterest is a developing network. It has a distinct social function from the first 3 networks we learned about. It's also at risk of losing its market differentiation due to sexism. Here's again what that means. Pinterest is very successful with their core group right now. They have overtaken all other social networks in referrals. At the same time, people are saying that's not satisfying because they're only referring women for the most part, about 73% to 27%. And so they're at risk then of having their own financial arm push them toward being something that they're not. And so that's the summary. It's really interesting. It focuses on the code. It focuses on the elaboration of the code, building the code, learning about it, taking pleasure from being interested in culture and code. And as that goes, and the way that interface operates, it is something unique that is worthy of your substantial and sustained attention.